السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته مشاهدينا الكرام. اليوم نلتقي بشخصية استثنائية تختزل في مسيرتها فصولا من تاريخ الإكوادور المعاصر. ضابط جيش سابق خاض معارك بلاده على جبهات القتال، واقترب من الموت في حرب ضارية ليخرج منها برؤية جديدة للحياة قادته إلى اعتناق الإسلام. اليوم يخلع بذلته العسكرية ليرتدي عباءة القيادة الروحية والعمل الدعوي والاجتماعي. نناقش معه في هذا الحوار ذكريات الحرب وفلسفة الانقلابات العسكرية في أمريكا اللاتينية وواقع ومستقبل الجالية المسلمة في الإكوادور. السيد الدكتور خوان سكويلو، مرحبا بك في لاتينو عربي.
السلام عليكم، السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. ربي يشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Thank you, my dear respected brother. I am at the service of Islam at this time, and please let's have a conversation that will perhaps give an idea about what is going on here in Latin America. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. كشخص يجمع دكتور خوان بين القيادة الروحية والخلفية العسكرية، كيف كانت نشأتكم الأولى في الإكوادور؟ وما الذي دفعكم في شبابكم لاختيار السلك العسكري كمسار مهني؟
Yeah, my upbringing was a normal Catholic person here in Latin America. I joined the army due to many circumstances, perhaps family. My mother and my father had an influence on me to join the army. Allah yarhamhuma, all of them. My father was in the Navy, Ecuadorian Navy, and he was an officer over there. And I used to see his pictures all over the house. And my mother used to give us every single day the history about the limits of Ecuador, between Ecuador and Peru and Colombia, usually with a map, usually with the Jarita. And actually, she belongs to a generation that I'm sure there was a generation of frustration because of the historical limits between Ecuador and Peru, especially in 1941, July, when the Peruvian armed forces invaded the Ecuadorian territory. So out of this invasion, half of the territory, meaning 200,000 square kilometers, were cut off, were made a partition from our Amazon area. In this regard, the actual territory that Ecuador possesses now, it's over perhaps 250,000 square kilometers, perhaps 1/4 what is the land of Egypt, around. So precisely this military incident, were diplomatic also involved, the guarantors countries, United States of America and Brazil and Argentina and Chile. Those were the guarantors of this treaty. But anyhow, she explains every single day what happens to us and our territory, and so it looks like affected my childhood, my upbringing, in order to decide to go for the army, and join the army here in Ecuador. So I spent like 8 years as a military cadet in the army, which is a long time, 8 years to become an army officer. And most, I remember, let's come back perhaps to the year 1981. Precisely 2 days after Mr. Reagan was in charge of office, on the 22nd of January 1981, we had another attack. We had another, for the second time in the 20th century, the Peruvian armed forces attacked to Ecuador armed forces. So I was already an officer as a military engineer. That is part of my background, military sciences. And it happens really that we had several fights during January and the following months. That particular war is known in the Latino Hispanic terminology, Guerra de Paquisha War. This is a short term, Paquisha War. So that's the conflict, the war that me and my soldiers, we were deployed by a presidential decree. The president at that time, Jaime Roldós Aguilera, he issued this decree for the armed forces to be deployed to the front line. That was perhaps how the story of my conversion, my conversion and reversion. Reversion to Islam came. We fought at that time. We interchanged some real fight and real arms with the Peruvian army, and couple of my colleagues, soldiers, were dead during the military actions. Myself, I was injured by an explosion. This explosion was very, very heavy, and I lost my left hand out of this. I almost passed away, and all my face and my chest was part of the injuries. Inasmuch that when my father, Allah yarhamu, he converted to Islam later on, but this is part of another history, inshallah. My father, when he was in the hospital and he was looking to me, he could not recognize me because of the burns and the injuries in my face. So can you imagine?
Now, يعني الآن كيف أثرت هذه اللحظة الفارقة، الاقتراب من الموت، على نظرتكم للحياة؟ وكيف مهدت هذه التجربة القاسية طريقكم فيما بعد لاعتناق الإسلام؟
Yes. First of all, the bloodshed, when you have this kind of injury, severe injury, one feels, in my case, I felt I was losing my life. I was conscious, and I thought maybe it will take 1 second, 2 seconds, one minute, and my life, entire life, my soul will departure. So a big sentiment, a deep sentiment of regret for a human being, when the human being have time. In my case, I had time to repent. I had a big a moment to reflect upon my life. At that time, I was 22 years old, a lieutenant in the military army, a commander of a military platoon. However, I felt remorse. This is the exact word in English. My remorse and regret, not being able to give enough time during my 22 years. At that time, very young, and now I'm 67. But at that time, not give enough time for me to have a conversation with God, a deep reflection with the Supreme Being, a time that will give me precise when I was about to die, when I was bleeding, a peace in my soul. I did not feel peace. So I said, I might lose my consciousness after 1 minute, 1 second. And I just remember all my past life. And what perhaps I will not be able to complete in my future plans, because the death is already there. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I ask, please don't take me to hell. Please give me a chance. Give me a new opportunity. And that was the connection, the feeling. You know, after that, I was lifted up by a big soldier who carried me out to the military car to evacuate myself. There were a couple of them to make the evacuation towards the hospital. During the car was the car was in the middle of the jungle, and the road was not a pavement. So it was. So I had to take.
Not proclaimed, Kaman. Not proclaimed ways inside the jungles. The way is not good.
Yes, yeah. The road was not suitable, and all the feelings and the hurt was increasing. It was hurting. So I just asked for a textile. There was a towel behind the chauffeur. I took the towel and I start chewing to replace the to replace any kind of medicine to lower down my pain. Any painkiller we didn't have at that time. So was chewing the towel. Anyhow, we reached the pavement, close, and then a flat tire in the car. So the chauffeur came down to see the spare tire. There was no spare tire. So at that time, the soldier who was doing my evacuation, he went down to the cabin and stopped the cars, any car who can take me over, and went to the hospital. So this is just to tell you that it was such a big experience. And then reached a hospital, and then of course the doctors, they couldn't save my hand, and it has to be amputated. So that was perhaps one of the starting points that I really said, if God, if you gave me another opportunity, I will try this time to go to the straight path, and basically that was my journey. I had many questionings about the soul. What about okay, if I would have died, all my body would have gone to the soil, to the earth, in the cemetery, the cover. But what about my soul? So I start investigating in my original previous religious Catholic religion, and I don't want to deprive any religion at all. Of course, I respect all of them, but I'm just telling my experience, and my experience was that I couldn't find answers in the Catholic Church, at least how the way it was presented. So they didn't give me answers in two access points. One, that I felt that my life did not have a continuous relationship with God. It was one time during Sunday for rehearsal, for spiritual feeding, but that was not enough. The dead came on the regular day, during weekly days, and so that's why my research, or my searching, was to try to find the way how to be closer to God, since I felt remorse in the first time. Isn't that logic? Of course. Well, at least for me. Second, my soul. When I try to investigate about what are the answers in Christianity at large, not only Catholic, presenting view about the soul, but the rest of the Christian versions that I join, and I respect them very much. During my journey, I left the army, then I went to study in United States, in the state of Michigan State University. when I left the army, and then I start searching for more options to give answer about these two questionings. Of course, those two were spiritual questionings. Yeah, and then no answers. Then I started, of course, searching for other ways of life, other spiritual paths that could give me this answer. And at the end, what I was looking for, and what I am still looking for now, is when the angel of death will come, inshallah, I will love, I will like, I'm begging to Allah to have peace in my mind. That is at the end, perhaps, is how we should we should end some of my conversation. Peace in life. Okay, so how it change, how it shapes the view, of course, in Michigan State University, I encountered many nationalities, classmates from Europe, from Japan, from the same United States. International student came from Middle East as well, Sharq al-Awsat, and many of my many people from Middle East. So my searching was trying to join them in practicality, on the daily life, how these different denominations, they live their lives. And I'm really pragmatic always. I was being very pragmatic with myself. And I was very sincere with them. And yet, usually, when I join several denominations, I went to speak with the pastors, with the leaders of the churches and religious denominations, and I say, let me be very frank, I am looking for God, I am looking for spiritual answers, but please let me decide for myself. Don't push me too hard. I know what I am looking for, but let me decide for myself, because sometimes I see some, let's say, spiritual leaders sometimes very anxious to capture one soul, to take them to the salvation. So I said, let me decide. So my journey there in Michigan was extensive and was a pragmatic one. And not only, I receive books and pamphlets from many Christian denominations. All of them, I would say all, treat me well. I cannot name one that did not pay attention on my questioning, on my answers. However, I can tell you my experience. Of course, it is my experience only. Maybe some other people might have some other kind of experiences going and through the same path. But my experience says that in the teachings that I received during Sunday school in my early childhood about Trinity did not match exactly when the time of death. When the time of death came and I was bleeding, let's recall, I said, God, forgive me. God, give me one more opportunity. Don't take me to hell. So I did not experience what the catechism in the church. I learned the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That was not present, at least for me. Some other cases, of course, maybe some other cases, some other people, they might experience. In my case, that was. So when someone from a classmate, look what Allah had, I can say, in a divine destiny already written for me. Since the first time I joined the IEP, Intensive English Program, this was a level, the 5th level, the uppermost level. We were about to join the kuliya, the faculty, but we need a little bit push. The one who was behind me was someone from Middle East. His name was Ibrahim al-Sughayr, and I did not pay attention to really to him. We never spoke about almost nothing. I just want to, but I saw the last classes for the 5th level. The teacher told us, you are about to enter the pass the TOEFL and some other tests and go to the faculty for full time. So now you have to tell us, what about your customs in your country? You picture your country for all the rest of the students. So of course, as a Latino native, I picture the mountains, the green areas, the rivers, and the volcanoes, and all the fertile land, the crops and the fruits that we have every year. Every year we have same fruits and same vegetables. Subhanallah, Latin America is this type of land. And of course, I talk about it. But Ibrahim al-Sughayr, he said, I'm going to speak about Islam. And when he said Islam, I connected for some internal thoughts. I connected with the pyramids of Egypt. I did not connect with religion. You see, Alhamdulillah, I can say finishing 1979 a bachelor degree in military science, we didn't know anything about the world of Islam. Nothing. He said, I will not make my statements trying to convince about my religion. This is, it has no proselytism on my speech. And I'm just going to tell what Islam is about. And that's it. The pillars of Islam, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But what struck me and connected me is when he started, there is only one God. But it sounds very simple, but it was complicated in Latin America. So because about the Trinity. So when we finished the class, I jumped into him and I asked him, Mr. Ibrahim, please, we've been classmates. I'm so sorry. I'm just sit in front of you. So sorry I did not pay attention on you. Let me present myself. This is Juan Sukilo, and please, can you explain me about this one God you mentioned? Because in my Christianity, when we said one God, there is 1 in 3. How many gods in your godhood do you have? 1 in 4, 1 in 5? How's this deal? So he said, no, there is only one. I said, are you sure? Because this is something that I felt. And I started telling my story about the army and how I lost my arm. And so that was the connection. The way Islam shaped my view on the world affairs, it is a big jump. It is a big jump. A conversion is not. It's not an easy task. It goes gradually. People has to have patience, and we have to have patience with our own selves. But the way to see the life itself has a different meaning, has a different shape. Why? Because of the transcendence of the soul. The transcendence of the soul that Islam emphasizes, straight out, pointed out, underlined, that gives you hope for this new life. That gives you purpose of life. No one except yourself. You earn your good deeds every single day with your own efforts. And those deeds, those good actions will wait in the scale in the day of judgment. And the soul is a transcendent, metaphysical. After I study Islam, after I went to some Islamic sciences, then of course this is a big part of a component that we all Latin American culture, Latin American civilization, let's say, we lack of giving importance to the soul. Giving importance to the soul really shapes up the daily life, the actions, and knowing the omnipotence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he's watching you and he's caring you and he loves you, and he is more deep than your jugular vein. He's inside your jugular vein, and he is a God that takes care about you, that knows your needs, that is very special with each one of your of the human beings. It is not the type of God, the deity that created the whole world, like in some religions, created the whole world, and then on the seventh day, after he created the sun and the moon and the earth and finally the human being, on the seventh day, he just sit down for resting. This is not the type of God that is being presented here in Latin America. So, of course, that gives you a very, very big reshaping of how you see the world back again. How you see the world, it is totally different in Islam, and of course there are many challenges. Especially in today's days. But Islam has been proven by historical facts that not only big majority of adherents, big majority of Muslims reshape the whole entire continent, or gives a new construction for moral compass, moral character to build up a new civilization, like in the case of our Prophet Muhammad SAW and the first companions in the 6th century, in the 7th century. In the 7th century, of course, that was the very early beginning, and the Muslims were minority at that time, and they, because of their souls and their spiritual feeling, they were able to conquer East and West, and the Persians and the Romans and the Rome, but even though there were a small minority. So Islam, let's say, here in Latin America still needs to grow in quality and in quantity, but more perhaps in quality than in quantity. There are big needs here in Latin America to develop institutions, educational institutions that will be dealing with وسطية, with يعني walking in the middle path, walking يعني searching for development of the society. At least this is the end of the religion. The end of the religion is not only rituals, but how the religion shapes the civilization, how the religion shapes the new cultural values. And this is how in Latin America we are just initiating the path towards what other societies in Asia, in North Africa, in the Middle East, they have already reached the pinnacle. Jazakallah khair, my brother. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. لو نتحدث عن فلسفة الانقلابات العسكرية في أمريكا اللاتينية، أمريكا اللاتينية مرت بحقبة طويلة من الانقلابات العسكرية، وأنت كضابط سابق كيف تقرأ فلسفة ودوافع قادة هذه الانقلابات في المنطقة؟ هل كانت تنطلق من عقيدة وطنية أم من مصالح فئوية؟
After World War I, perhaps, just to have a starting point and to understand the history of Latin America in this particular area. Let me try to grasp some aspects of. We might have to go back, perhaps, to World War I, when Latin America, we were very much in the sense of economical, in the sense of trading, in the sense of we had the connections. We had also connections with Europe. Of course, Europe came, Portugal came to Brazil, and the Kingdom of Spain, Aragon, and Castilla, they both together came as one figure here. A Spanish figure came to the western side of the Latin American hemisphere, and the two empires, the Portuguese Empire and the Spanish Empire, they have a big connections with us for centuries, of course, since the conquest. But that particularly connection trading connections and cultural connections and educational connections and economical connections with Europe kind of were reshaped between World War I and World War II. During World War I, at least Great Britain was the first superpower, and perhaps France and some other second, third place, and not only Ecuador, but Colombia and this Andean zone and region from Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, the Great Colombia that was dissolved in 1830s, and Peru, perhaps. We have very much ties with Peruvian through the Inca Empire. We used to have connections. We used to export our rice, our coconut, exactly what has all the components for the chocolate, all the agricultural products that were developed later by Europe. Usually you see the best chocolate produced by Belgium, but no, they come from Colombia and from Ecuador, natural resources. So by World War II, a big giant continental, let's say, neighbor, United States, came on the scene. The scenario came, and really United States became the #1 trading instead of Europe for Latin America. The #1 source, natural source for agriculture, for minerals, came from Latin America. So World War II was really reshaping our strategic alignments. Instead of Europe, came United States. Okay? That is why United States come to play a big role, especially after winning World War II. Of course, there were many other actors. Great Britain and Russia, of course, play a big role. They were allies. Remember, they were allies, Russia and US. But because of the closeness, because we are in the same America, North America and South America. I like to say better South America than Latin America, because Latin America has some other connotations. But anyhow, this is not the point of our conversation. So South America and Latin America, we were in the same continent. And then after winning World War II, and many of our uncles, all in Latin America, generation that admire the U.S. winning in the World War II, and there were also another factor that in the United States they opened the factories, and they knew hand labor, manual labor, and the technical labor from Latin America and resources from Latin America. So then you can see the connection between the North and the South Hemisphere. I mean, in America. We usually the nativos, the aborigine, the mixed people here. I am part of aborigine Indian, and the mixture we call mestizo, and the mixture with Spanish blood, especially from Arab blood. That is the result we have here in Latin America. This component, this genetical component, we start admiring the U.S. Many of our family members, I remember many of my uncles emigrated to U.S. back in the 60s, and from many Latin American countries, they emigrated because the factories in U.S., they opened cars factories, and usually at that time, they were the major providers of electrical appliances for Latin America. But those electrical appliances were long-lasting electrical appliances, refrigerators, and long-lasting. It lasts for 30 years. You know, not the ones that there are in the markets now. One refrigerator in the market today, it lasts 5 years, no more. But at that time, it was a different mentality. Anyhow, so we launch connections. Affections. You know, many of my uncles were, as I said, United States became like a protectorate. They want to protect Latin America, and
Latin America, it would like to protect Latin America, or its interests in Latin America.
Well, this is the how they sell. You know, the big powers, they will not tell you I want these resources from you or that resources. They will say we will come to protect you. Let's say protection, but you know,
safe.
What is at the end? What is at the end? But perhaps this is not only in the case of, and I'm not talking about all the big majority of Americans. I know by myself that the majority of Americans, they fight their life living to put the bread on the table, to feed their children. We might be talking perhaps to some special American administrations that has some particular interest on our region. This is true. Yeah. This is the truth. I can tell from my own experience, and of course, myself, when I was especially cadet, I was cadet in the army, Ecuadorian army. Yeah. We didn't know at that time what was the vision.
Yeah.
That project us. Look, we used to have military Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, military Olympic Games, in order now that I am an adult, I can realize that those military Olympic Games were in order to have friendships among the future commanders of Colombia, of Venezuela, or Peru. You know, we know each other's. We knew each other's.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, I experienced this in my own because I was representing Ecuador for the shooting team, 300 meters for the shooting team, and we won 2 times, 1975 and 1979, the 2 military Olympic competitions Ecuador won. I was part of the team of the 4 cadets, Ecuadorian cadets that won the team. But at that time, it was very normal. It was, but it reshapes, of course. If you ask any of my former classmates in the army, maybe let's say 90% of my former classmates in the army who were in the past 5 years commanders of the armed forces, army, navy here in Ecuador, of course, they have an American doctrine.
ما حجم وتأثير الدور الأمريكي السياسي والعسكري في هندسة ودعم الانقلابات العسكرية في أمريكا اللاتينية أو الجنوبية كما تحب أن تطلق عليها؟
Well, there are connections. There are political connections, military connections. Usually, politicians they like to sometimes ask refuge, ask protection from the army, and sometimes they use the army to make the military cups. It is a symbiotic relation from one side to another, particularly in our case in Ecuador, and I can say perhaps Chilean army at that time, we were very much friends at that time, because of one common enemy. The Peruvian army was our common enemy. But now I think all Latin Americans we are brothers in you know, I don't think like at that time we were enemies. But at that time, of course, first of all, the oil was, if I can give you in a pill, what was the cause? The oil. Yani, the oil that we have in our Amazon area, that provokes many of the appetite of the big powers that sometimes utilize it, the political powers, sometimes utilize it, the military powers, to bring the oil production and some other resources as well to feed the big geopolitical actors. So in Ecuador, basically, we had several military corps, and the army itself, as I said previously, was they have the military doctrine out of the American military doctrine. Yes, that was the connection, and of course, the two actors sometimes in Ecuador, when the first 4 years of military junta militar that you mentioned also in your Axis questions, the the junta militar was replaced by another junta militar. So there was an exchange of militaries back in the early 70s, 74, 76. It was a replacement between the two factions of the same military armed joint forces. This does not happen, and of course, let's see, during the transition, 1979 transition, Ecuador was the first country in Latin America to bring a democratic elections for democratic elections with President Jaime Roldós Aguilera. Dr. Jaime Roldós Aguilera, he was a lawyer from Guayaquil that was elected after having almost a decade of military dictatorship here in Ecuador. When Presidente Jaime Roldós Aguilera came on power, he wanted to take the power of the army to the place where it belongs, to the brigades and to the divisions, army divisions where they belong. He wanted to take them out from the political power, but that was not easy. That was not easy because the militaries were controlling for 10 years at that time the political and the diplomatic and the relationships. You see, but this is one case. In the case of El Salvador, just to compare very quickly, Duarte, Presidente Duarte in El Salvador, back in the same years, 1979 perhaps, he did not want the communism. Presidente Duarte did not like the communists. He was a democratic. But because he had at least five that I remember, militias that in those 10 years of the El Salvador revolution took 70,000 lives. Those five militias, 70,000. It's not a small number. 40,000 in the South America, in Argentina, 40,000. 70,000 only in dead people in El Salvador. But President Duarte, of course, did not want the communism, and he was very democratic. He used the army to repel and to take out of the scenario the militias, the communist militias, of course. But it was a lot of lives, 70,000 lives. They took this process. So it's very the puzzle. It is complicated to analyze. Latin America has to be analyzed country by country and situation by situation.
ما هي التكلفة أو الكلفة الحقيقية للحكم العسكري في أمريكا اللاتينية؟ وكيف تصف آثاره طويلة المدى على النواحي الاقتصادية والسياسية والاجتماعية؟ أنت حضرتك تكلمت على جزء من ملف حقوق الإنسان وآلاف الضحايا الذين قتلوا أو اختفوا في السجون بسبب هذه الحكومات العسكرية.
سؤال طويل عريض جدا. So is it possible you break down in English?
Okay. Let us speak about the about what? About how much cost the military era ruling in South America, especially in politics, economics, and in human rights fight.
Well, let's start that in Latin America, basically, at the early decades of the 20th century, perhaps there was only few professions, few dedications. The society accepts the society or privileges the society. One was military, the other was to become a priest, a religious man, and the third, you can run a finca, you can run a big piece of land, Okay, so there was not very many options. So one of the army itself, or the armed forces, let's say the armed forces. Let's don't minimize the big role that places in Latin American democratic institutions to shape the structure, to shape the institutional of the state itself. Don't minimize, but of course, it is a human nature. Once you reach a point, then there are abuses. Of course, there were several abuses, and it took lives. It took thousands of lives here in Latin America. The most prominent, the ones that I mentioned, the ones that I already mentioned. In Argentina, around 40,000 force disappeared. Force disappears. This is a forced disappearance in the law terminology, has a special place for disappearance. We do not call here genocide. Perhaps it is a genocide, but anyhow, 70,000 lives in El Salvador. In Ecuador, a lot less. Yeah, it goes by, I don't like to minimize as well, but no more than dozen people, perhaps. But of course, those are human lives. No question. We should start from it. And there should be weight and balances all in the state structure, in order not to let one power, the political power, control, or the military control to the extreme of strangulation, the population, or the judicial, let's say. They should be. But unfortunately, our democracies and our democracies here in Latin America are teenager kind of democracies. And democracy, unfortunately, democracy itself looks in general now that is losing track. So unfortunately for Latin America, we have not reached even the peak of being an adult in democracy, but democracy itself is already falling down, which is a dichotomy. Anyhow.
Yeah. Did you think that all the military coups are finished in Latin America, or the deep state for armies and military are still alive?
It is no question that in all Latin America, the military, except maybe perhaps a couple of countries, they have lowered down the level of control in the politics. Control in the politics, they have lowered. It is no question. The level has diminished in order to control the politics. However, what I can see now in some countries, that the politicians themselves, they are using sometimes the armed forces to reach their goals. So in this sense, they still look in the appearances that Latin America still may have the army big influence in the politicians, but I think it's tipping down now. It's tipping down and to the other side. In general.
Yeah. Now let us go to another topic. After you left the military life and you going to the Islamic work, how did you evaluate the Muslim situation in Ecuador, from population, freedom of praying, for example, in a society majority of Catholic people?
Well, of course, my experience in this area has also to be perhaps reevaluated with some other aspects of the society itself, and even the diplomacy. In Latin America, my dear brother, in Latin America, there is a big institution. There is a big institution, the religion institution, that has shaping the way, the secular state, because most Latin American countries and in Ecuador, we run a secular state. So I think there are only few countries where Catholicism it is the official religion in constitutionally. I'm talking about the Dostor, the Constitution, and those are Argentina and Costa Rica. All the rest, if I'm not mistaken, it's you have to double check sometimes. It is because we switch from one place to another. Then secular states, there is a heavy role that the agreements that the State of Vatican has made in early time of the 20th century, back in 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, 1930s perhaps, agreements between two states, the Vatican State and the State of Ecuador, the Vatican State and the State of Paraguay, Chile, Colombia, Peru, etc. That those agreements, of course, those agreements are to protect the Catholic religion, and those plays a big role, of course, when the time comes for freedom of religion. Freedom of religion, it is written, of course, because in our constitution it says the first amendment, the first article is that Ecuador is a secular state. But when it comes to the practical, to the pragmatic, it has a big gap. There is a big gap, of course, between in order to make institutionalize the secularity in Ecuador and in Colombia and perhaps some other countries in the Andean region as well. Because there is it is undeniable. It's undeniable the big role that Catholic institution plays on us. However, there are some legal institutions recognized by the government. Minorities, أقليات, religious, that got together in order to promote their voice, in order to reach their rights as they should be. However, I myself, I'm a Latino Muslim, and perhaps in our Latino community in Ecuador, we don't feel ourselves that we belong to any Aqaliyah. We are Ecuadorians in our full rights of having our own benefits from the government as a citizens, as protections and education, as far as health system, as far as judicial. We do not feel belonging to any minority. So fiqh al-aqaliyat in our countries really, but does not work for us, in the sense that we feel we do not belong to any minority. We are part of the Ecuadorian soil, and no one can play with us. But this is one important thing, and this is different when sometimes there is immigrations. That of course immigrations are different. But being a native, we have our own ways to let the government or the institutions know our needs, and we know certain regulations to be observed. We know how to do it on the legal way, of course. Nothing تحت الترابيز. Of course, we have to be very ethical. We have to promote ethical frames all the time, of course. This is maybe what I can say.
Yeah, because I know you have a meeting after this, so I have two questions. The first one, if you please give us an idea or abstract about the most important education services and da'wah for the Islamic Center. You are the head of the Islamic Center, which it gives to the Muslims and the Ecuadori community, in particular in Quito.
Well, basically, our aim since the beginning was to promote education, Islamic education, in the middle path for all the native Ecuadorian people who likes to embrace Islam. And I'm very reluctant to take shahadas, for instance, if I do not let the people realize what they are doing. We don't want any, we want the best. So we make the people realize that this is a very big step towards your mind, your soul, your family, that will affect your behavior and everything. So please double check. Please, are you sure you want to become a Muslim? Yes or no? Say. So this is especially our concern. How we select people. First of all, human being has to be talented, and of course there are several, let's say, activities that usually we deal with the children. The children, in order for them to shape the hawiyya, the identity, how is to be a Muslim, a South American, how is to be a South American Muslim, with keeping,
Yes.
our Islamic principles. So this is the part of the education, keeping our Islamic principles, but dealing with our own culture. I think is it cutting down the
No problem. It's because of the internet.
Okay.
But it's everything are recorded. Don't worry.
Sure. Okay. So we try to bring the best of our society, and men, women, children, and then we care for the identity of the new generation. We took particularly concern with the identity of the children, to make them feel proud that they are Muslims. Of course, there are many challenges in this regard, especially from the institutionally and the structures that Muslim community should have. We are still working on it to offer more facilities for our members, but we are in the processing. Usually we give our speeches in Spanish for the Spanish-speaking people, and we try to combine all together our Hispanic background, our Spanish language, try to mix with the appropriate words that would fit the curriculum for the education of the Islamic sciences, and this is a big challenges for, I think, for the time being, for all Latin American societies here in South America.
As an Islamic center, do you play a role in the public diplomacy to facilitate the connection with the Islamic countries, with the Islamic consulates, or in the world, in Arab world?
Well, first of all, even though I was, I had my education, Islamic sciences in the Arab world, but I think, and of course, the Quran is in Arabic, and the first Iqra, and our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he spoke in Arabic. Even though those roots very, very deeply are connected with the Arab world, we try to have the best of our relationship with all diplomatic representations, with all their diplomatic representations, not in privilege for the Arabs only, but with the rest of the Muslim majority countries that perhaps will be present with their diplomatic representations, and we treat them all the same, all equal, and this is basically how we try to have our relationship with diplomatic representations.
Is there any cooperation or with Islamic organizations, international Islamic organizations, like رابطة العالم الإسلامي, for example, inside the Ecuador?
Big organizations, usually big organizations, that one you mentioned, رابطة العالم الإسلامي and others, usually place their efforts in their big countries like Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and yes, small countries with small geopolitical influence. Usually we are out of the spectrum of consideration of the big political or big, let's say, religious organizations in general.
How many Muslims in Ecuador?
As I said, this is one of the questions that usually I was addressed since we start the Islamic Center, the first Islamic Center in Ecuador, alhamdulillah, by the grace and mercy of Allah, not by our by our efforts, alhamdulillah. The number we started out of the at that time when we started, the Muslim brothers, the Muslim brothers from immigrant background did not have the interest, let's say, to join or to make or to start an institution, at least in Ecuador. There were some Arab clubs, yes, but Arabs from different kind of religious background, united in one Arab club. But the first institution, and I'm not saying they will not, they are not paying interest. I'm not saying by any means. Of course, they had many of them, like the Sum family here in Ecuador, related to textiles, very prominent from many angles, with very much ethical behaviors. Let's say, sometimes better than one graduated from Al-Azhar in today's days. Unfortunately, but these people who came before, mashallah, ethical frame. But we sense the need to have an Islamic center from our own people, from Ecuadorian background, Latino or Hispanic background. So we started 4 men and 5 women and children. My children, 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And my children. Yeah. And my children. Alhamdulillah, all of them. We started as a project, lifetime project. It's a lifetime project. Yes, and we didn't have any big organization that will back us up to start an Islamic center. So what we did with me and my wife, by the grace of Allah and by humble expression in the whole sense, we donated half of our home, me and my wife, to start the first Islamic center. We had two floors, shoqa, mafrusha, two apartments. So the children started to growing, and we felt the need that we have to give something for our community. So we donated the first floor for the community to start the first Islamic center, the first mosque, recognized by the Ecuadorian government. Of course, that's what I'm talking about. We always like to frame under legal parameters what the constitution of the country says. Anyhow, I could count with my eyes, perhaps, before the pandemic, around perhaps 5,000 Muslims in the country. As I said, I'm not convinced that the numbers will give us Nasr. I'm not convinced that the numbers will give us victory. It is the quality of the people who give us quality. So who give us inshallah bi'iznillah victory. So that is why, and this is part of the history of Islam as well. And Islam has proven in many passages of the history the characteristic of a big expansion, and Latin America will offer what in other countries do not have: natural resources, mining, and all beautiful places to live and stay. That I'm sure, by the grace of Allah, inshallah, South America, or Latin America, as you said, or Hispanic America, will play a big role not the central, but the big role in reshaping the second, and I giving you the hook for our next podcast, for inshallah, the shaping of the hook for the second Andalus, Andalus, because South America is the last frontier for Islam to come with his mercy, with his moral compass, with his values for the next time to come, inshallah.
Inshallah. Would you like to add anything, Dr. Yahya?
Thank you so much.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you. Basically, we are facing really this time is the changing of the world order and a diminishing of the civilization. I'm pretty sure these 2 points in consideration will bring a very big reshape worldwide. Latin America is not the exception. So I would say my last conclusion, we need cooperation. All human beings need to cooperate each others in goodness in order to reestablish humanity in the human beings, in order to have our solidarity in our skin, and not to go very big down deep in our human being, but just to help the people and to help the brothers regarding the color, regarding the nationality, regarding the languages that we speak. We have to understand that we need each others. The only supreme being that does not need anything is Allah. All the rest, we need each others to cooperate, especially in these very difficult times that humanity are going to face. I'm not saying tomorrow. Perhaps it will take some few months, some few years, some few decades, but it's going to face. So we need to cooperation. We need to know that Allah gave us all of us different gifts. None of us is complete. None of us is invincible being. So we need to understand and just to take care about your own well-being. Tell the people when you feel something, if you feel love, empathy for each other, tell the people, I love for the sake of God. I love for express your words and in actions as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your consideration. Inshallah, it will be our first fruitful time together.
Inshallah. شكرا جزيلا دكتور يحيى خوان سكويلو، رئيس المركز الإسلامي في كيتو في الإكوادور. وشكرا لكم مشاهدينا الكرام على حسن المتابعة، ونلقاكم إن شاء الله في حلقة جديدة من بودكاست لاتينو عربي. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.